What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Norse, Oath of Blood, a TRPG that has a public demo available for everybody to check out as part of Steam's Next Fest, which is how I'm bringing you this video. But yesterday, from the time of this video, I put out some highlights for that event, and as always, I asked people for suggestions about demos they thought were really cool that I might have overlooked, and by far and away, I would say, Norse Oath of Blood here is the one most people seem to want me to take a look at, and after playing it for myself I can certainly see why given all the TRPGs I play, but to be a little more specific, if the name wasn't a dead giveaway, this is a TRPG set in the Viking Age of Norway in particular, but it's also a story of revenge. We don't see too much of this in the demo, but the Steam page states it pretty outright that the entire setup for the game is that your father, a Jarl, is murdered, which sets your entire village, of course, into disarray, and your job is to gather up the remnants, rebuild a settlement elsewhere, and of course take the fight to the people that murdered him. Which is where our story gets started, because we've gotten permission to build a settlement, though naturally, in order to do that, you're going to have to crack a few skulls. In particular, upon arriving, we meet a couple of farmers who are having trouble with a local band of slavers that go around raiding the places, and our job is to clear them out so we can start building said settlement, which leads to your first encounter with a mission. Now, like many a TRPG, it looks like this is going to be separated into the world map and the sort of management side of things, where you take care of your settlement or your base, and then in between that, as time passes or turns pass, you'll be met with like missions and things that need to get done. But in the case of this game, those missions are not strictly turn-based affairs, but rather, like a couple other TRPGs I've seen, you'll have an explorable section to it where you can go around, like loot things, pick up various items, that kind of stuff, even potentially maybe grab some blessings. This can also provide various bonuses and stuff that you'll carry into the battles you'll have as part of these missions. Now, the turn-based battle side of things, honestly, pretty basic. I've seen many a TRPG have essentially the same combat systems. However, I will say that there are games like Expeditions Rome that take just sort of standard human engagements with relatively simple weapons and still manage to make it really compelling, so I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, mind you. But at the start, you've got a deployment phase. Once you've got your guys set up, you can start the battle. Combat is an ability point or action point system where everything you do costs a number of action points that you get a pool of to spend for every character's turn. Turns seem to be based on an initiative order, and taking part in combat and these missions gives the individual characters that are there experience points that then, once you make it back to the management screen, can be used to level them up, which is where they're going to get like extra abilities and things to spend that seem to be based on that character's rough class. Now, on the settlement building side of things, it is probably what you would expect, but as you get your settlement up and going, you'll get access to various craftsmen, extra services, the ability to, of course, manage all your troops, so you can outfit and take care of them appropriately so they can serve you until their dying breath in glorious battle. Now, of course, building all these projects and expanding your settlement is going to take a bit of time. This is the turns that are available on the world map, which then, as time passes, triggers things like events, missions that can pop up, that kind of thing, as you also manage your base. Adding to that is the fact that you do have to manage some resources here as well. Resources that you will earn by, of course, building out your settlement and just sort of earning them passively from everybody working in said village, alongside what you pick up on various missions and the like. And while all of that is well and good and probably what you would expect from just about any TRPG that we see these days, really what I think probably sets Norse above and beyond is the honestly pretty impressive amount of cinematics, both in terms of like the voice acting, the facial animations, and just how much character they managed to put into all of this, that when I think you look at the big picture, so to speak, it winds up coming off as a really great coat of paint on the kind of thing you would probably expect from the genre at this point. Now, as some general thoughts, just some things I had in mind as I was playing through this demo, one of the first things that strikes me really is how well combat will advance and progress over the course of whatever this looks like when it is a full game. So, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, sometimes with these TRPGs where you are handling sort of real-world people, at least, in terms of their relative power level, that makes the warriors and things that are available to you perhaps a little bit on the dry side in terms of actual combat actions, but I have seen some games do that well, and that's what I'm hoping for here. But that really comes down to just how much diversity there is in terms of ways to build out individual characters. Their ability trees that we see in the management screen are kind of binary per level, and so I would be curious to see in the full game then how much you could take two characters of like the same class and actually make like fundamentally different units in terms of both the abilities they actually use, but also things like their equipment and items at play. You can obviously use items and things. In fact, there's even some battlefield interactions with like throwable spears and stuff you could pick up, and we also see things like, of course, dual wielding, two-handing, sword and board, that kind of thing. So there's some hope there that there will be potentially very interesting builds and things to work around. And then with the sort of management side of things, building up your village, crafting seems to be a significant portion of that. And if they're going to do it that way, in which crafting things and managing your resources plays this really big role in actually building stuff, I hope at the same time then the rewards from that will be appropriately worth it, so that the progress involved here actually feels like it is worth the individual player's time. But probably unsurprisingly, given just the look at some of the individual cutscenes, things like that, I'm thinking story is probably going to be in a pretty good place here. Seems like they're putting a pretty big emphasis on the story that they've crafted, and I think if that story is compelling alongside mechanics that are fun, then there will be some real potential here, which is obviously why I decided to cover it. So with all of that said, I do think it's a fantastic demo. It is available over on Steam as part of the event. I'm not sure if it will continue to be available afterwards, but it certainly looks like they're doing some cool stuff either way, and it certainly has my attention. And while there is no word yet on a release date, I will certainly be looking out for this one in the future. But in the meantime, and as for this video, at the very least, that's pretty much all I've got for you guys today, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about Norse Oath of Blood here down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.